Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q4 2024 update to What's Next in OpenShift, where we will give you a glimpse into our product roadmap, direction, and initiatives, and exciting new use cases and features over the next 6 to 18 months. This is an hour-long presentation that covers the summary and motivation behind the roadmap. Specific details for each of these topics covered and more can be found in the appendix that you can access offline and you can use as a reference. Also, please note that the material discussed here is subject to change. So my name is Oren Kashi, and with me today, I have a terrific team of OpenShift product managers who will join me as speakers. In addition, we have the rest of the OpenShift PM team to help answer questions. If you do have questions, please feel free to add them in the comments section of this live stream, and we'll do our best to get you a response. For the Red Hatters that have joined, check the calendar invite for additional communication channels. So many of our features that we're working on are heavily influenced by our customers. So let's get started. So for organizations that run their business on software, which is practically almost every organization these days, the quality and speed of delivery of those software solutions are key to the organization's success, especially in the emerging age of AI. Almost every facet of our daily life nowadays is touched by software applications. Just think about how many applications you're going to use today. We use them for practically everything, right? Everything from banking, insurance, shopping, which this weekend we probably all took some part in that, travel, entertainment, movie streaming, and even car ownership has turned into a subscription that is managed by applications. So more than ever, your software strategy is your business strategy. The ability to roll out new and improved digital business services and products continuously will be the difference between companies that stagnate and ones that evolve and innovate. So value can be created in a few different ways. You can increase customer satisfaction with innovations. You can gain competitive advantage by offering differentiated digital services. You can increase revenue by optimizing existing business services and rolling out new revenue streams, and also reduce operational costs by intelligently automating manual and time-consuming business operations. So, of course, agility and new technologies come with challenges, such as those that you see here. Some of these challenges have been with us for some time, such as application modernization, developer productivity, but some challenges are new or are actually increasing. In 2025 and onward, we will see a significant increase in the usage of intentional AI, where AI is on the fast track to becoming ubiquitous. So at home, at work, and really everywhere in between that. Even with few technical skills, Red Hat customers and employees are now using AI to create content and develop tools. Gartner predicts that 80% of enterprises will have deployed generative AI-enabled applications by 2026. So this sudden acceleration of AI also increases the knowledge gaps and adoption gaps that developers must address. And this modifies the threat landscape too. Recommendations for securing infrastructure and application supply chains apply equally across all types of solutions, including AI application platforms and AI-enabled applications. However, organizations still struggle to update existing tool chains and processes. So what you need is an application platform that is trusted, comprehensive, and consistent, whether you're running in the cloud, on-premises, or at the edge. You need to know that the platform is trusted, that the software supply chain used is reliable and secure, but not just for the application platform, but also for your applications as well. That it's comprehensive, that it encompasses all aspects of software development, and consistent. You know it will work and how it will work, regardless of where it is based. And to echo this, Red Hat was recently recognized as a leader in both the 2024 Gartner Magic Quadrant for Container Management and in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Cloud Application Platforms. So our roadmap is heavily influenced by our customers. And as we approach 2025, we remain focused on these three key areas. One, management at scale across the data center, public cloud, and edge. So manage and secure your platforms and applications at scale with OpenShift Platform Plus across your fleet of clusters. Accelerate adoption and reduce operational overhead with OpenShift Managed Cloud Services, whether you're running in AWS, Azure, Google, or IBM Cloud. and scaling applications to edge servers and devices with OpenShift and Red Hat Device Edge. Modernize your applications. Increase developer productivity with OpenShift Developer Services. Accelerate model training and MLOps to build more intelligent applications with OpenShift AI and the use of OpenShift Lightspeed, which we'll hear about a bit more in just a minute. Infuse the Red Hat portfolio with Lightspeed, which is a generative AI service that helps users work with Red Hat products more efficiently, and simplifying application connectivity with cloud-native frameworks and services with OpenShift Application Services. And 3, modernizing infrastructure. Bring VMs to a cloud-native platform with OpenShift virtualization. Implementing universal connectivity with a focus on user-defined networks, and modernizing your OpenStack deployments with OpenStack services on OpenShift. Now, throughout all these, security is paramount. So infusing security throughout the platform and the application lifecycle, as well as increased functionality to enable supply chain security, is one of the main goals throughout any of these areas. So let's dive in, and we'll have Duncan take us through some of the spotlight features. Duncan, over to you.
Thanks, Oren. And apologies, I understand there was a little bit of a problem with the audio on the early part of the stream, so we will be making a recording available of the whole session so you can catch up on the bits that we've missed. But let's get on to Spotlight and highlight some of the areas that we want you to pay particular attention to. So with OpenShift Lightspeed, we talked about this at the last What's Next. And for those of you who are keeping up, and who were watching the OpenShift What's New in 4.17, you should know that we've delivered a tech preview. For those of you new to the topic, OpenShift Lightspeed is available as an operator now. It integrates its chat UI into the OpenShift console, so you can use natural English to ask OpenShift-related questions, inspect pod resources. Really interesting area for us. But what does the future look like? Next slide, please. So as you can see here, the tech preview has a ton of functionality already, and we're obviously going to be working towards bringing that to GA in the near future. But what other things do we want to investigate in this flagship operator? So as always, there's a ton of stuff to look at. Starting off, I think we want to look at if we can bring more customer awareness into the command line, so you can ask about the state of your cluster and get recommendations. In addition, we understand that you want to maybe bring your own knowledge into Lightspeed. Maybe you've got deployment-specific rules or specific runbooks that you use that you want to include in the feedback that it gives. This boils down to us making it available to add your own additional knowledge sources. And of course, at Red Hat, we're going to include other OpenShift products, so we'll be making use of the same process as well. We also want to look at how we can improve the health of the clusters. So integrations with service like Red Hat Insights that I hope you know all about. That's going to significantly help you with things like automation tool chains, definition of business process, everything. And that ultimately brings us to things like predictive maintenance and proactive self-healing. All great goals that we're going to look at in the future. Of course, developers and application services are near and dear to everything we do. There's a ton of stuff that we're doing here as well. And I think, I can't remember if it's just happened or it's going to happen. There's going to be a full session on this, but just to pick out a couple of things on the application foundation side, I'm really liking the plans for the migration toolkit. They're going to look at how we can use AI by looking at Convey AI and also bringing in a bunch of additional toolkits, all about accelerating that migration process for you. For the developer services side, we've got a trusted software supply chain. So let me get this right. Artifact Signer, Profile Analyzer, and Application Pipeline, they've all gone GA now. So what we're going to really focus on here going forward is customer adoption, any feedback that you bring in, and also things like looking at AI model supply chain security. Moving on, we look at AI and OpenShift. As before, we're just going to continue to deliver innovative solutions just that look at accelerating and streamlining your deployment, your development, your management of those AI-enabled applications and your Gen AI stuff, be it in private data centers, cloud, and edge environments. You'll actually see the usual suspects on this slide, like GPU support for sandbox containers via peer pods, but there are a couple of new kids on the block that I want to draw your attention to. So the first up is improving GPU efficiency. So these are valuable resources. We want to make maximum use of them. So one way to do this is to slice them up into manageable pieces that are matched to the resource requirement. So we're going to look at things of how we can bring in things like dynamic resource allocation and its cousin InstaSlice into OpenShift to allow you to do just that, slice up those GPUs. At first, this might be kind of a static approach, but we'll look continuing going forward and look at how you can do things dynamically just as the workloads get scheduled, for example. Another issue that we're well aware of is that AI workloads really are massively parallel, and running them in batches just greatly increases your throughput and scalability of models. This really means that you need to bring together a bunch of jobs and make sure they run at the same time when the right resources become available. It actually reminds me a lot of HPC type workloads where they used to have a lot of inter-process communication going on. So OpenShift AI does this already for you today, and they leverage an upstream project called Q. And there's a couple of things that we want to do here in OpenShift generally. The first is continue to work with that Q community to help Q progress. And the second is to take Q into the core of OpenShift, so that it can not only be used for AI workloads in OpenShift AI, but other areas and workloads that can benefit from this type of batch processing. There's a lot to do here. We're going to continue to work with all the players you're used to give you the choice and flexibility you need. Next slide, please. Speaking of OpenShift AI, again, a topic we could spend several hours on, but you'd be sick of me by then. This is going to continue with its goal to be the platform for AI ML use cases. And there's a bunch of work going on here. So on the ML ops side, we're going to look at model serving. So that's all around kind of size. So more numbers of models, as well as things like A/B testing and canary rollouts. And we're also going to look at improved monitoring. So there's a lot of back-end stuff that's really useful there already, but we're going to take a look at what we can do on the front end and provide things like visualization. Gen AI, so this is going to be the immediate big focus going forward for OpenShift AI. You know, productizing it at scale, looking at things like foundation models, LLM, tuning guardrails to prevent those, you know, embarrassing hiccups that we've kind of heard of. So all about more models, more teams, more ops, looking at the whole process from end to end so you can tune and evaluate it. The way to think about this part is like just think of RHEL AI, but at scale. On the model development side, the interesting feature there for me is feature store. So as I've been told, features usually take a long time to develop, a lot of resources, and we can accelerate things by taking a leaf out of the, you know, the open source model by sharing more. So the feature store is going to give you a formal way to post reusable features. And then platforms and integrations. Again, we're going to add more platforms, add in more accelerator support, but we're also going to look at other areas like designing for FIPS validation. Next slide, please. And that brings us nicely to virtualization. So there's obviously been a whole bunch of movement in this space, and the OpenShift virtualization team have been knocking it out of the park. They've been consistently delivering and improving capabilities in response to your needs. But as you can see, there's a bunch of areas that are going to continue looking at going forward. So starting with simplicity, I talked about the modules in OpenShift Lightspeed, so we're going to work on an OpenShift virtualization module. And the idea is just to help you around workflow guidance and troubleshooting. We also want you to be able to migrate everything that you want to migrate, to have a comprehensive solution. So we're going to look at how we can expand our guest migration list. For networking, there's something new coming on, but I'm going to leave that as a tease for now. I'm not going to tease you for long. It's in the next slide, but there's something huge happening there that we're excited to talk about. Also on the storage side, in 4.17, we introduced a tech preview feature to move VM disks from one storage class to another. We're going to continue to enhance in this area the idea to be able to move storage classes and clusters without disruption to workload availability. And then finally, on multi-cluster and hybrid support, we're going to continue to look at what cloud providers we need support for bare metal. Close to my heart is support for ARM and IBM systems, specifically IBM Z system. And then most excitingly, we're going to combine OpenShift virtualization with Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager. And this is going to just help you when you're managing VMs at scale, make it much, much easier. Basically like a one-stop control shop. Next slide, please. So let me finish the spotlight section on, and I never usually get excited about networking, but something called user-defined networks. So UDN is part of a much bigger initiative you'll hear us talking about called universal connectivity. And the aim here is to provide seamless integration between a default networking, so OVN Kubernetes, and you, the customer's external networks. So why am I excited about this? Why should you care about this? So traditionally, if you looked at the cluster pod network, it's going to be a monolithic layer 3 network across the cluster nodes. And if you wanted a different isolated network for, say, security reasons, you'd have to load one or more additional CNI plugins. Now, the secondary networks are okay for some deployments, but they don't have all the advantages that a Kubernetes primary network has. And you do introduce some extra things to think about, maybe increased complexity, additional operational burden, or even just the fact that the plugin of choice doesn't work with the Kubernetes network that you're doing. So with user-defined networks and our newly added VRF support, you're now going to be able to carve out additional isolated by default primary networks for your pods and VMs. What does that really mean? You can have your own IP address range. VMs can have their own static IPs for the lifetime of the VM. There's no need for NAT anymore. You can attach or even make this network look just like your own data center network. So, for example, say you've got thousands of VMs that you want to migrate across to OpenShift, you no longer need to re-IP each and every one of them. There's a bunch of other stuff that will transfer the way you work today in here, but right now I need to move on to the core platform. So next slide, please, and next slide, please. So for the core platform, where we focus is on onboard and lifecycle. So we think about platforms, installations, and updates. I'm going to pick up on updates on this slide because there's a few things happening that I don't talk about later. We want the update experience to be stable and consistent right across. So you'll see some notable new features that we're working on, support for N+3 SKU and updates across channels, a status API to monitor update progress. And I was told not to forget to mention our update pre-check command, all things that are going to make things much easier for you as far as that. Next slide, please. OpenShift is all about the hybrid cloud and cloud native. We would be nothing without support for our various cloud providers. And we want to make sure you have a consistent experience across that, but there's always a bunch of stuff to do. If we look at networking, I've already talked about UDN, but we're also seeing rising demand for networks configured with both IPv6 and IPv4. So we're going to look at how we roll out dual stack support to more of our cloud providers. A lot of us have told us that you run your own DNS services, but you want to be able to configure them at install time rather than a day 2 operation. So we're going to look at how you can do that as far as a full stack automated deployment. I think probably first on AWS or Azure. It's just all about reducing these post-install admin tasks. Without infrastructure to run on, you won't have a very good cluster. And while infrastructure is not always the poster child in this area, it's very important to us. Again, on the theme of reducing day 2 admin tasks, we're looking at the idea of how you're going to be able to define additional disks at install time. So after first boot, all the disk storage that you need is there and ready to use. And I've already talked about OpenShift virtualization, so we want that to be available wherever you run. So we're looking to bring OpenShift virtualization to the Google and the Oracle cloud providers. And then finally on that, again, we want you to be able to run where you want, and some folk want to use on-prem solutions. So we're going to look at how we can bring in support for Oracle Private Cloud Appliance and Oracle Compute Cloud across our offerings. Next slide, please. So I mentioned on-premises, again, tons going on here. This is going to be a theme. If you search for tons in my speech, I'll probably mention it too much. The key highlights here are on the bare metal side of various day 2 configuration abilities. So modifying VMC addresses, attaching non-bootable ISOs, adding nodes on day 2. We're also looking at what bare metal as a service type offering might look at. On the vSphere, the focus is on ease of use. So things like getting VMware host groups working with OpenShift zones, just generally easier configuration and management. More than one disks and machine sets, allowing you to find multi-NIC VMs at install time. For Nutanix, we're going to continue to work on static IP address support. And for OpenStack, huge focus on Red Hat OpenShift services on OpenShift. Again, a lot going on. The thing that I'm kind of most interested in is going to be the ability to host multiple OpenStack control planes on the same OpenShift infrastructure cluster. So this is going to give you great options as far as consolidation or grouping together of resources. And for the IBM stuff, everything's there really as part of the core pieces. So now we're looking at how we can expose or make use of the unique features of these powerful machines. And, you know, from things like support for security offerings or things like secure execution being enabled by the agent-based installer. Next slide, please. I said I'd talk about hosted control planes. This is a great technology. It's going to be at the core of any cloud-based offering. It's a really exciting offering. It's going to be have a massive effect on things, in my opinion. Again, a bunch going on here. Let me pick out some. On the enhanced lifecycle management, the team's going to look at how they can streamline upgrades. So things like EUS parity, node pool version alignment. We're looking at how to improve automated scaling and delivery. So that would include things like automated autoscaler 2 from 0, support for 500 plus nodes on Azure and Arrow. On the networking side, we've already talked about user-defined networking, so that's going to bring things like shared VPCs and ingress flexibility. We're also looking at what we can do as far as expanding the metrics that are collected. So, you know, more alerts, cost visibility, just improved monitoring better. For RHEL CoreOS, you know, we wouldn't be anything without that. We're looking at providing an on-cluster Red Hat CoreOS build option to allow you to host your build environment in the cluster, as well as looking at features and automation to make the customized Red Hat CoreOS experience similar to the fully managed experience that you get now. We're also looking at how you can bring customizing support to boot images. So this is going to really help with hardware support scenarios. We're also looking at how we can minimize workload disruption. So you'll be hearing things about node maintenance mode, providing a way to define node disruption, and having something called pod priority-based graceful node shutdown. Storage, the march of CSI continues. Maybe it's over. It's kind of been going for a long time now. The one that is close to my heart, because I look after Windows containers, is we're going to do some CSI driver for CIFS. So those CIFS Samba shares, for those of you who rely on a Microsoft infrastructure, are going to be around. And then finally, autoscaling. We're going to look at alternatives to the cluster autoscaling that we offer currently. So we're looking at Carpenter and how you can do that on other platforms. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the core platform, and I think this is the last bit you'll be glad to hear. We continue to focus on scalability and resilience for those self-managed OpenShift clusters. What does that mean? There's a few things happening here. The ability to hibernate a cluster for up to 6 months. We want to look at how we further improve recoverability. So things like how you can get your control plane back on if you've got expired certificates. A backup API, so you can do automated backup of the etcd cluster. And then we're also looking at how we can give you a resilient stretch control plane. So things in that we need would be to GA, so selectable etcd database sizes. Well, I am definitely sick of hearing my own voice, probably less sick than everyone listening to it. So I have a hankering to hear something about cloud services. So Shreyan, tell me all about cloud services.
Thanks, Duncan. We have many exciting new features planned on the Red Hat Cloud Services. Next slide, please. There are many listed here, but I will start with the top two from each offering, starting with Azure Red Hat OpenShift, that is ARO. The first one is the support for managed identities and workload entities. This feature will utilize short-term credentials and more granular permissions when deploying and managing the Arrow clusters. This will significantly improve the overall security posture of the Arrow deployments. The second one is hosted control plane, where the control plane infrastructure is hosted by Red Hat on behalf of the customers. This is a significant improvement in new architecture which will allow significant savings, improvements in terms of operational efficiency, and increased reliability for the Arrow users. These two features will bring the managed OpenShift on parity between our offerings on Azure and AWS. Moving on to the Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS, that is ROSA. The first one is allowing ROSA with hosted control plane admins to deploy clusters without any public egress. This will enable customers to meet their compliance and security requirements while having tighter control over their cluster's egress network. The second big improvement is going to be support for shared VPC deployments for ROSA HCP clusters. With support for shared VPC, now the ROSA users can share VPC subnets and other VPC resources, thereby reducing the number of VPCs that they need to create and manage while using separate accounts. The other important one that on ROSA to call out is support for Windows VMs with OpenShift virtualization. Next slide, please. On OpenShift dedicated on Google Cloud, building upon our exciting new features that we rolled out in Q3 and Q4 of this year, we will increase the maximum number of compute nodes supported on OSD and ROSA Classic architectures from 180 to 249 nodes. Next one is to increase the AI workload adoption. We are enabling a wide range of GPU-enabled GCP instance families with deployment flexibility, such as allowing customers to deploy single AZ machine pools with GPU instances enabled in a multi-AZ cluster. This is often required when GPU instances are scarce in cloud providers and they are not available in all the different zones of a selected region. Next is we will enable support for the GCP C3 Metal instance that was rolled out earlier this year, followed by OpenShift virtualization's operator support on OSD. This will allow users to run and manage their VM workloads on the same container application platform as their containerized workloads. And finally, building on the theme of integration with native GCP services, we will offer NetApp Astra Trident operator out of the box, and this will provide seamless integration with the Google Cloud NetApp Volumes service from Google and NetApp. Now I will hand it over to Ali to talk more about workloads and layered offerings.
Hey folks, welcome to the next slide, please. Welcome to the layered offering section. The OpenShift console is the face of OpenShift and is a key component for tying together the OpenShift platform. The console with dynamic plugins allow our layered offerings, our partners, and our customers to create their own unique custom user experiences. Now let's jump into some of the key highlights we have for y'all. In the short term, you can expect to see support for content security policies for the console and dynamic plugins, leveling up the console security. Next, you'll see a few new Gen AI templates to make it a breeze to build your own GPT-style apps on top of OpenShift. Fun fact, these templates won't require any GPUs in the cluster, enabling anyone to experiment. Next, simplification is one of our main goals, and to aid with that, we're merging the dev perspective into the admin perspective and making the dev perspective optional. Moving on to midterm, you can look forward to support for Patternfly 6 and the deprecation of Patternfly 4. Not only will PF6 give us a fresh look and feel, but will come with great features like theming. Longer term, we will focus on different ways to improve your ability to create dynamic plugins. You can look forward to some cool integration with DevHub. And last but not least, we will be experimenting with just-in-time user interfaces in the future. Next slide, please. So we have a massive year coming up for OpenShift Service Mesh as we're preparing for a major release of version 3.0. This will converge OpenShift's offering with the community Istio to provide support for the latest stable Istio features. The 3.0 release will be built on a completely new operator that uses standard Istio configuration and provides support for Istio's multi-cluster topologies, canary control plane upgrades, Istio, CTL, and much, much more. Service Mesh 3 will be the foundation for the future of Service Mesh on OpenShift. In 3.0, we are aiming to provide a developer preview for sidecar-less ambient mode with technology preview to follow later in 2025. Dual stack support continues to evolve with tech preview planned in 3.0 and GA targeted later in the year. Looking further in the future, we will add support for off-cluster workloads, additional multi-cluster administrative support via ACM, and Spire integration support. Next slide, please. OpenShift GitOps has a lot to look forward over the next year. So let's go over some of the key highlights for y'all. Coming soon is support for running in FIPS environments and a developer preview of the Argo agent. The agent is a new way for Argo CD to split up workloads and its footprint across clusters. Suppose you need a workaround for scalability limitations or require strict internal network separation. In that case, the agent model will be able to support your use case right out of the box. Further out, we are planning to get the progressive sync feature stable upstream and make it GA in the future. Progressive sync provides a thin layer of extra control for the deployment order inside application sets. For more advanced responsive deployments, Argo rollouts is available. We're also bringing rollouts in the OpenShift console so that users can observe their deployments across cluster alongside the rest of their workloads. In the long term, we're working on stabilizing the image updater code base and bringing automated, GitOps-friendly image tag updates and deployments to OpenShift GitOps. Also coming from the upstream is an initiative around environment promotions and rollback capabilities. This is still in the early stages, and we will be working with the community to help progress this feature forward. Next slide, please. In our roadmap for OpenShift pipelines, we're focusing on making Tekton more efficient, visible, and scalable. We're launching a tech preview of the Tekton CD Pruner, an event-based tool to automatically clean up unused pipeline objects, helping teams optimize cluster resources. Next, Tekton Result is moving to GA, giving users long-term log retention and enabling easy log retrieval analysis. This will be directly integrated into the OpenShift console. And we're introducing concurrency control with pipeline as code, allowing teams to set rules on concurrent pipeline runs per repository, preventing resource strain and pipeline conflicts. Moving to our midterm goals, we will be providing enhanced Tekton metrics via console dashboards, giving users deep insight into Tekton's performance across clusters. We're also adding caching support for resolvers to improve pipeline speed by caching Tekton objects. Next, we have pipelines and pipelines, which will enable link workflows for complex and multi-step automation. Long term, we'll be focusing on multi-cluster functionality, like pipelines as code for multi-cluster environments, and planning a unified Tekton UI for multi-cluster management that will provide a centralized SaaS-like experience to monitor and manage pipelines across all clusters. Next slide, please. For OpenShift Serverless, we're focusing on enhancing security, developer experience, and platform capabilities. First, we're working towards a GA of end-to-end encryption for serving and eventing. This ensures security and integrity of your data, both in transit and at rest. For developers, we're working towards introducing Python templates for AI and WebAssembly, and streamlining the development process with OpenShift Console, CLI, and IDEs. And finally, we will be including support for AWS Lambda migration. With Event Mesh, you'll get some great features like auto-discovery of events and prefactor sources and syncs such as AWS S3 and SQS and more. This will enable users to simplify asynchronous communication for their event-driven applications, and longer term, you can expect us to support event streaming as well. Since OpenShift Serverless powers OpenShift AI, we're working on offering serverless workload for advanced composition that would include AI ML models, Apache Flink, and more. To further empower AI and ML capabilities, we're working on providing support for integrating with popular cloud AI platforms and adding drift detection for model reliability. On the platform side, we're also looking to offer serverless on edge platforms and integration with Kita. Next slide, please. All right, so builds for OpenShift will focus on improving the user experience of build images with shipwright builds, as well as adding new build strategies and bringing build packs to GA. To help getting started, we will soon introduce a form-based flow for creating shipwright builds directly in the OpenShift console. Since many of our customers are already using build configs, we'll be creating a migration guide that will help our customers through their migration journey from their existing build configs into shipwright. Furthermore, we will be working on making shipwright builds available on other architectures like ARM, Power, and Z. We will introduce multi-arch build strategies so that customers who have heterogeneous clusters with worker nodes on different architectures in their clusters, i.e. ARM and x86 nodes, are able to run shipwide builds that create images from multiple architectures, all orchestrated to the appropriate worker nodes. BuildPacks is currently in dev preview, and we will be working on bringing BuildPacks to GA throughout the next year. Our focus to enable better user experience for consuming BuildPack ecosystem on top of OpenShift. Next slide, please. So we're taking OLM to the next level, focusing on making it even more trustworthy, comprehensive, and consistent. First off, in the trust category, OLM v1 simplified APIs, declarative operations can be automated through GitOps or zero-touch provisioning workflows, reducing the risk of human error. Next, OLM v1 also adheres to platform-wide signature policies, safeguarding the integrity of operator content. Second, in comprehensive section, OLM v1 will be compatible with a wider range of packages, including Helm charts, giving you more flexibility. Next, the improved catalog content service will optimize UI and CLI performance by efficiently retrieving all necessary operator metadata, improving the management experience. Finally, for consistency, OLM v1 offers a standardized interface for managing operators regardless of the packaging format. These standardized operations simplify workloads for install, update, and removal, ensuring consistent behavior across different packages and infrastructures. Next slide, please. Next up, Quay. So the Quay team is stepping up their game as well, focusing on 3 key areas: UI modernization, AI model support, and expanded storage capabilities. First off, in the UI modernization, the Quay team is working on the final features to reach parity between the old UI and the new UI. Once achieved, all future investment will be directed towards enhancing the new default UI. This will ensure a modern, consistent experience for all our users. Second, in collaboration with the OpenShift AI team, Quay is integrating the model registry. This will enable seamless storage and management of ML models and metadata within Quay, enhancing support for AI workloads. Finally, expanding storage capabilities in general, Quay team is exploring ways to broaden storage support. While specifics are still evolving, our goal is to make Quay a versatile platform for managing various types of architectures beyond just containers. Next slide, please. I'm going to be handing this off to Radek, I believe. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Ollie. These are some great features, but let's talk about networking and observability. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with networking, and the first feature is really interesting. eBPF Manager is our package or packaging of the BPF-Man upstream project. It's now part of the CNCF sandbox, and already in 4.17, you could start using it as a tech preview. What it does, it actually enables internal teams, but also partners and customers to manage the eBPF program's execution and visibility on the platform. eBPF is a very powerful tool, and it allows the developers to create user space programs that has kernel privileges. And because of that, you can observe network traffic, but also you can affect the network traffic. And you want to have better control over this. So again, BPF Manager adds the capabilities to administrators who can manage the eBPF programs, who can look at who's allowed to do which kind of actions, and gives you additional abilities to really observe what the eBPF program is doing with your cluster. It adds that additional level of security that doesn't really exist in the Kubernetes marketplace right now, and it strengthens really the eBPF security story around that. As I mentioned, it's been available as tech preview, and it's been installed together with the network observability operator, and it's part of the networking's Ingress node firewall. But with the GA release coming up in early next year, we will see this integrated with all the Red Hat internal eBPF implementation. This includes network observability operator, as I already mentioned, but also advanced cluster security, Kepler, and eventually we want our partners to adopt the BPF-Man as well. Next slide, please. So 2 other real interesting features from the networking space. The next-gen Ingress, our gateway API, it's basically a second generation of the Ingress API, and it provides a unified approach to managing Ingress across Kubernetes clusters. It's built on the original Ingress, but it offers more flexibility and scalability. It allows developers to define custom routing rules and advanced traffic management policies. And basically, you can break the networking API into multiple layers You can empower your developers by giving them more abilities and more functions to deal with one of these layers, but still have a very good control about what you actually want to do with the networking traffic. A network observability operator comes hand in hand with this. This is our UI and set of features to monitor and observe the networking traffic. Today, it's a very powerful UI with an OpenShift Web Console, and we're discussing how to enable it by default so you have it available in day one. But also this interface, we want to make sure that it's part of our multi-cluster story. So eventually, network observability operator will get better integration within ACM for multi-cluster enablement. Duncan already mentioned user-defined networking that is going to be supported by the network observability operator, so you can actually see all the layers and observe them in the way that you're used to with the operator. And we're expanding the scope and additional metrics that network observability can look at to support AI deployments, to support new eBPF enhancements, and additional things. And the interesting thing is the correlator work that I'm going to mention in the next slide, but we're making sure that networking events are part of the troubleshooting story that we have within the OpenShift Web Console. Next slide, please. So let's talk about observability and what we actually do. So observability for us is a set of features and components that we deliver to you and are part of the platform. And we make sure that the basic building blocks, the components that are the different open source components that are supporting different type of signals, are always up to date. And we're basically following upstream to deliver you the latest and greatest versions. But on top of that, we want to make sure that you are able to manage and deploy these components in a very easy way. And you can also leverage some of the additional features, the analytic solutions that help you to troubleshoot your cluster and work with it in a more efficient way. So the interesting thing that I'm going to be talking about here is the cluster observability operator. The 1.0 version is coming out very soon. And basically, this is our way how I've already described. We can define a type of a signal, and we'll give you the set of components that support the signal for data collection, storing, and presenting it. And we'll carry on and then bring over the different UI integration into the OpenShift Web Console. What we will see soon are integration for traces, and we also have an integration within the developer perspective for traces UI. With OpenTelemetry support, we're building the application monitoring dashboard, but also if you choose to use OpenTelemetry for logging, you have an integration within Logs UI. So again, cluster observability operator will brings these UI integrations for these different type of signals. But on top of that, it integrates with our analytic solutions and what we call the troubleshooting journey components. Incident detection, I'm going to mention it later because this is a project coming from the Insights world, but it's actually allowing us to group together multiple signals into what we call the incident and work with it in that way. Signal correlation is a great project that allows us to look at an alert correlated with logs and networking events, and it basically allows you to drill down from an alert into all the different signals that make up that issue and allows you to, again, easier debug that problem that you might have on your cluster. Let's go to the next slide. So what is coming up for us in next year? So a lot of the work is happening around sustainability. That's a big topic in the industry, and we want to make sure that we offer you components that will help you to build a sustainable and green solution within your cluster, within your environment. For us, the main thing is a component called Power Monitoring built on upstream Project Kepler, and it has multiple capabilities that allow you to look at the energy efficiency of your namespaces and of your cluster. We're adding support for additional CPUs and GPUs as well. We're making sure that we are adding improvements to monitoring and optimizing the performance metrics. But basically what it does to you for you is that it will show you again the total energy consumption on your cluster within a certain period of time. It will give you the list of namespaces that are most energy draining. And it's also important to say that this is for us a building block where we see other upstream projects that are looking at power-averse scheduling, that are looking at COP dashboards, that we want to make sure that eventually we're going to look at and offer to you as well. So this is the start from the sustainability journey. OpenShift Platform Plus, this is an interesting for us as well because we want to make sure that the observability story is even better when it comes to OpenShift Platform Plus. And because of that, we're working on a multi-cluster observability add-on, similar to the cluster observability operator. This is our way how we offer you a set of components with for specific signals, but again, integrated with different analytics capabilities. The troubleshooting incident detection is one of them. Right sizing recommendations are actually integrated already in ACM and available to as tech preview. Again, it will give you a very good information about across the fleet of the cluster, about the workloads that are not utilizing the resources in the right way. And as an administrator, you can actually look at some recommendations eventually, how to deal with those and then how to optimize them better. Now with ACM, what you will also see as a new Observability UI experience. This is powered by the upstream project Persis that allows us to build different dashboards that are integrated within the ACM workflows. And eventually you will see more UIs being carried over into Persis and supporting it. One thing that you will see very soon is a new alerting UI in our ACM console, not only to work with alerts coming from the actual ACM instance, but being able to cover alerts from the ACM hub and all the clusters that it's managing. And again, eventually even you'll be able to customize these dashboards and build your own thing on top of it. Next slide, please. So other two areas that are mentioned here a couple of times over this presentation are virtualization and AI. And we want to make sure that when you move over to OpenShift virtualization, the observability capabilities are there, and you can start working with OpenShift virtualization like you're used to with different platforms and different tools. Now, one thing that you want to make sure you have available are the logs coming from your VMs integrated into the logging UI that we have as part of the OpenShift App Console. So this is a feature that we're working on. Right sizing has been mentioned as one of the ACM features. We want to make sure that this supports VMs as well. And again, in the same way how you do with other namespaces and workloads, you can work with VMs as well. Same comes with additional dashboards. So we want to make sure that there's, as part of OpenShift virtualization, there's a set of VM-focused dashboards allowing you to monitor your VMs, look at its performance, its potential issues as well, monitor their migration path and additional features. And as all these is coming integrated within Advanced Cluster Manager, ACM again, and eventually in the OpenShift App Console as well. Kind of the same story for AI. We want to make sure that when you run OpenShift AI platform, the observability story is there, and we support the type of workloads that you'll be running on those. So we're working with the team to enable OpenTelemetry as an OpenTelemetry extension specific to LLM frameworks and vector databases. But along with that, we're working with the OpenShift Lightspeed team. Again, something that has been mentioned here as well. When you want to explore the additional capabilities, when you're triaging an issue or finding some information, you want to make sure that the observability data are feeding into the Lightspeed PROM, and we can easily find that additional information for you from the observability dashboards and other places. And because of that, we're also making sure that all the accelerators are supported within OpenShift console and OpenShift, and in the OpenShift console, you have the right dashboards showing you the GPU data and information about GPU accelerators in general. Let's jump to the next slide. So we work closely with our friends in the Insights team on what we call the Observability Connected set of features. Advisor and Cost Management are both services that are available on console.dot, and when you run your clusters connected, they'll give you some additional capabilities and features. Advisor is focused on the predicting risks and recommending some actions. And what you will see in the upcoming features is this work on incident detection. Something I already mentioned, that we're grouping together multiple things to form an incident. Part of that, of course, is some sort of a recommendation that comes from our subject matter experts at Red Hat who are running and operating OpenShift, and who will be able, and who are this way able to recommend you some solution for an existing or potentially coming problem. With that comes another thing that is mentioned here, the rapid recommendations. We want to make sure that these recommendations, we have an internal process that allows us to much more faster deliver you these recommendations. So when an incident appears here internally, we can immediately let you know as well that you might be potentially hitting that problem as well, and we don't want you to have it. Cost management, it's a great tool that is available again within console.com, and it visualizes and distributes the costs of your running cluster and all the workloads on top of that. And with cost management, the main set of features and functionality for next year is coming to integrate with all the additional capabilities that were mentioned through this presentation. So we want to make sure that virtualization is supported there, hybrid hypershift is mentioned, and we want to make sure that, again, if you're running any kind of flavor of OpenShift, you still get the same capabilities from cost management. I'll switch to my next slide, and then my last slide. AI has been mentioned here a couple of times, and I want to make sure that you look at it from my perspective as well. Basically, when we look at AI workloads and anything that is AI powered, this is all the work that the observability and networking team are looking at together. We want to make sure that we support these specific network behaviors that are coming from the AI workloads, and we want to make sure that we can observe them and we can actually recommend some best practices for running them so they run in the most efficient and optimized way. We, of course, want to make sure that all the GPUs and accelerators are enabled and they are certified within our solution, so you can again run them and then optimize them as you go. And based on this, we're adding the OpenTelemetry instrumentation for the additional frameworks and vector databases and additional things that empower the AI workloads. So our goal is to really make sure that this whole platform supports the AI workloads and it runs in the most efficient way. And OpenShift Lightspeed has been mentioned as well, so we want to make sure that anything that is actually AI powered, we actually feed into this with observability data and provide additional information, additional capabilities, and we even offer some tailored recommendations for this cluster workloads, the pods that you're requesting some support for through the Lightspeed interface. So a lot of work coming up in front of us, and I'm going to hand over to Maria, the next speaker.
All right, let's talk about security. Security in OpenShift has always been a key differentiator. There are some exciting features. We'll cover first the area for OpenShift, and we will move later to advanced cluster security. So in the upcoming year, you will be able to bring your own OIDC. And why does this matter? With your own IDC, users and groups can authenticate directly with the Kubernetes API server. Organizations will help them automate authentication and configuration at scale, standardize access policies for users and applications, and basically it will align with the upstream enhancements as well. This is already available in ROSA in HCP and will be also available on a standalone OpenShift and on Arrow ACP. So we are planning to take preview it in 4.18 next year. We are also enabling secure workload deployments on OpenShift. This is the least privileged approach that is aligned with the Kubernetes community restricted pod security standards. And we plan to promote this restricted enforcement to GA in the second half of 2025. This year, we have tech preview running pods on Linux namespaces, and we're also planning to GA the same feature. It basically allows to run pods on their own namespace and not on the default namespace, which is root. And this, by doing this, like it mitigates risk by isolating each containers in their own namespace. And in case there are breakouts, then there is an additional layer of security on the host. We'll also be adding QKMS support for encrypting data in etcd. We already have this for hosted control planes, but we are also planning to bring it to OpenShift standalone and other offerings. And for Cert Manager, the key enhancements include integration with OpenShift Service Mesh, support for additional issuers, support for disconnected environments, and support for managing trust bundles via Trust Manager. We are also adding support for the operator external secrets operator, which, if you remember, helps us manage secrets stored in a third-party management solution. And this provides additional opportunities to integrate with other layer products, like, for example, Quay.io with the pool for the management of pool secrets. To reinforce the shift left approach and to make it simple to sign cloud native artifacts, we are adding also 6-door support in CRYO. It basically includes the possibility to sign and verify artifacts in OpenShift. And this is important for a lot of customers that are already using 6-door out there. For the secret store CSI driver, we are working on supporting Bolt and GCP secret providers, and we are planning also to GA the operator as well. And on the confidential computing front, we continue to invest in adding support for confidential containers, VMs, as well as OpenShift sandbox containers. Next slide. And let's talk a little bit about workload identity, because there will be an investment in 2025. And we will do this incorporating a SPIF and a SPI. But first, let me explain what is workload identity and why you should care. Currently, I mean, workload identity is just a way to assign a unique and verified identity to a workload, application, or service, and not relying on the traditional methods, which are, API keys or hard-coded credentials like passwords. And we are doing this with a SPIF and Aspire. And a SPIF is a framework that securely assigns unique and identity-based credentials to workloads like applications or services in distributed systems. And Aspire is the open source implementation of a SPIF. And it automates the processes creating, managing, and verifying these identities. And this is important because it helps manage secure identities for workloads in complex environments, like, for example, multi-cloud or multi-cluster systems. There are many benefits, like it reduces the cost of automation and maintenance. It provides node and workload attestation, so ensuring that the workload it claims it is, and also ensuring that it's running on secure and verified nodes. It doesn't only work on containers, but it could also work on VMs. It provides short-lived identities. The federation can be set up as well with Aspire servers on-prem and in cloud hyperscalers or even at edge. And this is basically a production-ready solution. There are a lot of companies that are currently using this, like Uber, for example, or Fidelity. And it is a way that it has been adopted for most hyperscalers like Azure, AWS, or GCP. Next slide. And now let's talk a little bit about advanced cluster security, which is one of our layer products for security. We're going to break it down per use case. So let's start with vulnerability management. The vulnerability management, we want to continue the trend to have an effective management of supply chain security. And we are going to provide a way to generate through ACS software bill of materials, as well as being able to report vulnerabilities against a specific SBOM. So customer can actually generate all of this through ACS, or they will also have the possibility to import an external generated SBOM and basically export the list of the impacting vulnerabilities. Vulnerability information will include a new piece of data, which is very important, which is the exploit prediction scoring. And this will allow you to identify which of the vulnerabilities have exploits available or are more likely to be exploited, so that you can target those first. And we will also have enhanced remediation guidance for Red Hat content. So for example, for OpenShift core images, we will provide upgrade guidance based on OpenShift's CStream releases. Risk profiling is also going to shift a little bit. We try to make it more actionable and easier for users to prioritize and pay attention to. We want to improve the UI to make it actionable. We are going to create a new dashboard, and we are able to provide ways to customize risk ratings or improve the scoring for a specific use case. So customers can actually go there and get valuable data and act on it. In the area of compliance, in compliance, we have done a lot this year to try to get a good solution to look at compliance for your entire OpenShift fleet. But now, in addition, you will be able to generate reports, either scheduled or on demand, for your fleet. We know that usually clusters, when you have compliance regulations, they will affect not only to the clusters, but also to the applications. And so we are also planning to have compliance as policy for workloads, or basically any workload that is running either on OpenShift or other Kubernetes distributions, and help you visualize, in general, what's compliance, not only infrastructure side, but also on the workload side. We also plan to include tailor profiles, which is a very useful feature in Compliance Operator, and provide compliance trends so that you know the historic trend of your clusters. Let's go to the next slide. And now in terms of policy guardrails. So we are going to invest in two features that have been requested a lot. They have been requested support for policies as code, especially via Argo CD. We have this via API Rockscuttle, but now also via Argo CD. It allows you to manage policies at scale and in an automated way. Also, customers have requested to have a similar reporting setup to the one that we have in vulnerability management for violations. So we will make that available as well. And we're also planning to integrate with other policy engines, like, for example, validation admission policy that came in as part of Kubernetes recently. On the network and runtime, we will include the external IP information, both on the networking and the network graph, and as well as the policies to identify if suspicious activity happen from outside your fleet. And we will also keep up with the amount of features that we have now available in OpenShift for isolation, like admin network policies or baseline admin network policies and user-defined networks. We will also invest on OpenShift virtualization to visualize that as well. Lastly, for the platform, we want to have a very good and unique integration between ACM and ACS. We are starting by integrating ACS data into the ACM Global Hub to provide a wide visibility of the entire fleet and having many different aspects that are relevant for the user. We are also planning to support ARM architecture on secure clusters. And we will make it easier for customers because we will handle auto rotation of our ACS internal certs, so the customers don't need to do that manually any longer. And with this, I hand it over to hear what's coming in Advanced Cluster Management.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. Now, of course, no one runs just one cluster. So look at some upcoming solutions for multi-cluster management by checking out the what's next for Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management. Next slide, please. First off, cluster lifecycle. Exciting news as we're adding the ability to deploy and lifecycle ROSA HCP directly from Rackham. And further down the track, we'll add that same support for ARO. And if you're hosting and running your own hosted control planes, you'll love to know that we're adding the ability to backup and restore locally running hosted control planes as part of the Rackham backup and restore procedure. But honestly, avoid disaster in the first place. We're enhancing Global Hub with more alerts so you can plug them into your event-driven systems, such as event-driven Ansible. Now, in governance, we're doing more with our super cool Discovered Policies dashboard. With it, you'll soon be able to see your deployed Kyverno policies in a read-only view, and we also plan to use that dashboard to display OpenShift's brand new validating admission policies that are deployed across your fleet. This is cool because it really solidifies the Rackham governance dashboard as that single pane of glass for your policy engines. And long-term, we're going to refresh, modernize, keep those dashboards really good so stuff is always easy to use. Now, on to observability. First, we're adding an Alert Manager UI, making it much simpler to see and mute and unmute and manage alerts. And we're doing even more with alert management by looking at advanced features like silencing and grouping alerts and being able to create incidents from them. We also want to make it to be easier for you to track VM health and are adding networking and VM snapshot dashboards to the growing collection that we already have. And it really doesn't stop there. As you heard from Radek earlier, we've heard the customer need for better logging observability, and we'll continue that journey at scale by building on the dev preview of the Multicluster Observability add-on. Last but not least, you heard a bit about this earlier. I want to share again our plans for introducing the CNCF accepted project Perses to that multi-cluster observability dashboard setup, making everything easier to customize and use. Let's go to that next slide. Okay, while we know virtualization in containers is a thing, it's time to make it a thing at scale. We are adding really cool VM functionality through the ability to create and destroy VMs directly from Rackham. Yep, that's right. You can search for any VM across your fleet. You'll find it, you manage it, you build it, move it, remove it, that kind of thing, all from Rackham. And I almost forgot, with Rackham, you'll soon be able to get right-sizing information for tuning your clusters for optimal performance of your VMs. Now, as a special treat, I've added a link in the slide that you can follow to get an interactive demo of right-sizing right now. But let's move on to app lifecycle, because I think this section actually could be as cool as Vert. As you know, GitOps and ACM is already easy, but we're making it easier with the GitOps add-on. But what does that mean? Well, this means enabling your managed clusters for Argo application set deployments is now actually easier than ever. And as you heard earlier in the GitOps section, Rackham is actively involved with upstream Argo communities. We're working on progressive sync for reliable multi-cluster application deployment, as well as the Argo CD agent, which makes lightweight scaling much, much easier. Now, finally, Edge. We're working with the Edge management tooling team to make managing Microshift easier through fleet management in Rackham. This brings all types of clusters into that common management paradigm. Honestly, there's a lot more I could tell you about this, but we need to wrap this section up. We don't have time here, so please check out the full roadmap slide at the end of the deck, and let's move on to the next section with Hari. Thank you.
Thank you, August. Let me go through the exciting features for the Edge and telecommunication sections. Next slide, please. Starting with the Red Hat Device Edge and Microshift. This is our Edge platforms, and always focus on far edge and small footprint deployments. There are two major priorities I would like to outline for calendar year 25. First off, it's the extension of the AA toward the edge with model serving, leveraging models which were developed with OpenShift AA in the core. The second one is the simplifications of the delivery chain to the edge by switching to RHEL image modes. As part of that, it will also be accompanied, with some extended capabilities for our day 2 operations like auto recover from backup and standard compliance. Next slide, please. As per customer demand for high availability, cost-effective deployment at scale with 2-node deployments in areas, such as retail, industrial. Red Hat is now working on 2 variants of the OpenShift topology targeting 2 nodes. The first one is what you see on the picture here, which is the 2+1 OpenShift with local arbiter. It looks and feels like a 3-node compact cluster, but actually the 3rd node is a small one running only critical components required to ensure high availability and provide the quorum in case of split brain situations. Any RHEL 9 OpenShift certified hardware will do as arbiter nodes. Memory and core requirements are fairly small, 2 core and 6 gigabit of RAM. And you can even run that arbiter in hyperscalers as long as it satisfies the latency requirements. As this behaves like a 3-node clusters, layered products such as OpenShift virtualizations are fully supported, and we are working with our storage partner to ensure that their storage solutions will also work, in this kind of deployment. We plan to fully GA this in 4.19 with a technology preview release in OCP 4.18. As this is still, 3-node clusters, what about the true 2-node solutions? Let's look at that on the next slide, please. The approach here is really, for this true-node solution is to leverage existing and proven well high availability technology to guard against, and protect etcd. This required fencing to isolate potentially faulty nodes and ensure consistency in split brain situations. Regular Kubernetes mechanism then will be used, to remediate failed node resume. The technology preview is planned on 4.19 on this approach, and we would like, to get your feedback, to enhance, the functionality. So much, on our plans for new OpenShift topologies. Let's take a look at what we have in the telco world. Next slide, please. As telecommunication providers transition from physical network function to virtualized and cloud native solutions on OpenShift, we need to provide them a solution for their most urgent problems. One area of need here is really, when they encounter catastrophic hardware failures and need then to restore the service as fast as possible, right? In this scenario, a single node OpenShift instance has a running workload that is servicing customer traffic, but service is brought down, due to hardware failure. A new server then is shipped on the far edge site, and must be provisioned and put in service as far as possible in the same exact state as it was before. In order to do that, we will leverage, a recent investment in image-based technology, image-based install and image-based upgrade, and we'll use those, as the building block for our break fix solutions. We will utilize, our image-based and install methodology and ensuring that we maintain management and observability continuity to make sure that the new server looks like the old server. We plan to release a developer preview for image-based break-fix solution in 4.18, and we encourage customers and partners to evaluate it and provide feedback so that we can mature this technology and meet the market needs and requirements. Next slide, please. As far as ORAN, discussion with communication service providers shows that they expect, from Open RAN and ORAN, not only reshaping the industry towards virtualizations, more intelligence, open, and fully interoperable mobile network, but also better total cost of ownership. With ORAN standardizations group, we aim to continue the ORAN journey by promoting, Kubernetes declarative paradigms and best practices. We'll actively participate in discussions about infrastructure lifecycle management to drive sustainability and the cluster template. Last but not least, we wish to deliver an OCloud manager that manages OCloud workflows and terminates the O2 IMS interface. In upcoming releases, we are working to implementing the cluster template concept and focus on the primary use case of single node OpenShift DU with profile deployment. With this approach, we expect additional benefits for a customer from our cooperations with hardware, RAN applications, and SMO vendors. Next slide, please. Finally, to address specific telecommunication use cases, we are delivering a certain number of functionality to provide CNF pods the ability to communicate with local or remote pods across multiple VRFs while running on OpenShift nodes, requiring to be connecting to multiple VRFs to the fabric with BGP. This is one of the reasons why Red Hat keeps investing, on MetalLB and the FRR Kubernetes component, as well as their integrations with OVNK, mostly via BGP feature integrations, to cover the pod most advanced traffic steering requirements. Those investments are incremental, improving our network stack, where all features can be used independently or all together to address, some of the most stringent telecommunication networking use cases. That's all I had for the Telco and Edge, and I think it's back to you, Oren.
All right, thank you so much. So I'll just want to quickly wrap up. So I just want to thank everybody for joining today. Thank you to the presenters and to everybody who worked on the presentation. The What's New and What's Next sessions are published and publicly available. So please feel free to check out these new features and the recordings, and also check out learn.openshift.com or try.openshift.com. So thank you again. We look forward to seeing you in some of the future